I think we're good to go, Chris.
Good evening and a very warm welcome. I hope everybody is warm. I don't know wherever you are, but the forecast here is for -9 this evening. So if we start shivering, you know why. A particularly warm welcome to those new to BDOVELO. So very short plug, the business network based around cycling. It is as broad and as narrow as that. This is our second webinar of the 2021 series as we continue to operate in the virtual world under lockdown conditions. Looking on the bright side, I don't know whether this is true, but it seems like a new vaccine is coming out every week at the moment. And the vaccine program is definitely gathering pace. So hopefully we might actually get out on the road as summer arrives. Here's hoping. At this stage, we haven't sought to tempt fate by putting any rides or physical events in the calendar, but we continue to monitor developments and government advice very closely. And when guidelines allow, we will be announcing a program along the lines of previous seasons. So in the meantime, we remain in a largely virtual world with the weekly Zwift rides at 7:30 on a Friday morning, and an increasingly competitive BDOVELO team time trial team, which races on a Thursday evening. So if anyone's interested in joining either racing or the only slightly more relaxed rides on a Friday morning, look out for the newsletter or drop me an email. And we're also extending, I'm pleased to say, we're extending the stretching and conditioning program that we kicked off a few weeks ago. I'm certainly benefiting, I think. Anyway, I can thoroughly recommend it. So if you're interested in that, as a yoga novice, I can say it certainly works. So if you're interested in that, then do sign up. Anyway, this evening I'm pleased to be joined again by my co-host, Mr. Richard Best, who most of you will know. Richard and the team at Iconic Cycling have worked with us now for probably about the last 5 years or so, and done a great job delivering some fantastic events over that period. But I'm really delighted, and probably the reason you're here, not for Richard and me, but really happy to be joined this evening by two world record holders in Cat Dixon and Rachael Marsden, otherwise known as Razzle, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, who not only became the fastest women to circumnavigate the world on a tandem, but they've also been recognised in the top 100 women in cycling in 2020. And we were discussing this earlier, Raz. It's a bit of a step up from the Richmond Park ride you joined us on in 2018. Anyway, we'll see. Anyway, just before we hand over, it's also worth noting that they also beat the men's record for circumnavigation by 17 days and raised a fantastic 40,000, and I'm sure it may even have gone up higher than that, but £40,000 for charity on the way. So the plan this evening is for Richard and I to navigate a discussion which is probably going to be more of a chat, that ensures we tease out some of the highlights and probably some of the challenges of Cat and Raz's incredible trip. There are questions that we'll be firing at them, and there's an opportunity to fire your own questions for us to deliver. So do use the chat function, and we'll do our best to weave those questions in as we go through the evening. But before we get into the meat, we are having another draw this evening. Richard has managed to purloin 2 bottles of a fantastic rum, Market Row, brewed and distilled in Brixton, I believe. So it's definitely worth hanging around to the end of the session. Anyway, Richard, why don't you kick off proceedings? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good evening, everybody. And this is the second of the webinars this year, and 2 ladies to join us, which is fantastic as we strive to get more ladies cycling and joining the BDOVELO community. So very quickly, Cat and Raz, first one for you, Cat. Who are you and what do you do? Because some of our audience won't know who you are.
So I'm Cat Dixon. When I'm not cycling, I run the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I used to run the Law Society of England and Wales, so I've been a CEO probably for about 10 years or so. I'm a solicitor by background, mediator. That's me.
And tandem rider.
Yeah.
And tandem rider and cyclist, yeah. Absolutely.
And Raz, tell us about you.
I am a nurse consultant in Oxford, and I look after people living with motor neuron disease, and I coordinate the Care and Research Centre in Oxford.
Very good. Slightly different career paths.
Yeah.
And how did you two meet then?
We met on a ride. It was a charity ride from London to Paris that we did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and for motor neuron disease.
Yeah.
And I'm right in thinking you were both on tandems, but not the same one.
No, I was on a solo, and
okay.
Cat was on a tandem, and I'd not really cycled much at all before then, just to work and back, but that was it. So I started training because I just didn't want to die on the 4 days, and I just thought I'd like to enjoy it rather than struggle and suffer. So I joined the Condors Cycle Club and absolutely loved the ride. Met Cat and a lot of people on there, but yeah, and that's where it started.
So Raz, whose idea was it to cycle around the world?
Well, it wasn't mine.
Yeah, so I guess I'd always had an ambition to cycle around the world, and Raz and I started training together, and we did quite a lot of events. You know, we went to the Alps, we did the Étape, and we've done Liège, Bastogne, Liège, and some of the classics and various bits and pieces, and started talking about, well, wouldn't it be great to cycle around the world? And then it sort of said, well, why not on a tandem? And let's break the world record. So so off we went, really.
Can you put a time frame on that first meeting on the ride to Paris to finally having a go at the world record? What sort of time scale are we talking about?
Not that long. And not forgetting, I wasn't a cyclist. And I hadn't been on when Cat suggested this, I hadn't been on a tandem. So I did go on once. I had a go, and I thought I'd show off and show how just hard I could push. And next day I couldn't walk, and I had tandem legs basically because it's not how you ride a tandem. But
well, next day we rode the Struggle, which is it's one of the big sport teams in Yorkshire, and it's over 100 miles, and it's pretty hilly actually.
I couldn't walk
and
that morning.
with Raz with tandem legs, so that was quite good fun.
So Cat, you're obviously the main tandem of the two. So who's the stoker?
That's me. I'm the powerhouse at the back, clearly, obviously.
That's what she thinks. No, I'm the pilot. So I have ridden a tandem before. So we people always ask, do we move about? We don't. I sort of pilot Raz Stokes, and that's how it is, really.
I should point out, actually, because I've met you, Raz, I know you're not very big. You're not a big person, are you? So when you claim to be the powerhouse, you must be a pocket rocket, really.
Well, I think, that's why I'm not the powerhouse. But I think in combination, it's not just the power at the back. It's us working as a team, really, and understanding how Cat rides and how I ride, because you have to kind of ride. I mean, it's obvious, but you have to be really in tune with each other, and it's not all about just power. And it has to be, when Cat changes gear, I have to know when she's doing it without her saying, to kind of keep in sync. So
it's a real team effort on a tandem. Particularly when it's a fully laden tandem, because obviously it's pretty heavy. So, you're holding up a lot of weight, and you need to be pretty slick with your coordination and things, for sure.
Yeah. So Kat, just sort of following that theme, in terms of the bike, just talk us through that, because one assumes you didn't just go into Halfords and order the biggest or lightest tandem that they had. So there must have been some thought gone into the bike itself, wasn't there?
Yeah, so we had the bike designed, but we worked with JD Tandems, which probably the best tandem shop, but they actually they manufacture them as well, which are based up in Gargrave in Yorkshire, and they're brilliant. And we spec'd it out, and I mean, I think people think, oh, you're going to go for the lightest sort of carbon, and actually you can't really do that, because one of the rules from Guinness is that you've got to ride the same bike all the way around the world. So we actually had a steel frame, because if we broke it, we needed to be able to mend it. But the frame comes apart, so we have some couplings, so we can take it apart because we did fly certain stages. We've got, I mean, the other critical thing is the wheels. So we had 48 spokes on each wheel, so pretty heavy, but really, really robust, because obviously you've got quite a lot of weight when you're carrying, because it was an unsupported ride. So yeah.
What are we talking about in terms of weight then when you're fully laden?
With all the water, when we were going along the Nullarbor, we kind of calculated with the water that we carried, which was a minimum of 12 litres, we were about 200 kilos.
Yeah, with us on it as well.
Yeah, with us too.
Yeah.
But you say taking off the bike. Lewis and Lloyd, the two guys who did it before us, literally did get their tandem off the peg and cheap, and they had no end of trouble with broken spokes, wheels, and all sorts. And that's and I can say that now because I wasn't allowed to say it before, but we didn't have any spokes broken or wheels kind of bending or anything. It was really solid, really, really good.
We'll get on to the sort of mechanicals and what you changed and what you didn't change and all the rest of it. But just kind of sticking. The bike ended up with a name, didn't it?
Yeah, Alice.
Why Alice?
Well, it was sort of it was a club competition, so you had to name because it's a pink tandem. I mean, we should have a picture of it really. So she is beautiful, but she's bright pink. And the club came up with we did a competition, and I think it was something like Amazing Ladies in Cycling Extravaganza or something like that. But then there's the link to Oxford about Alice, in the Wonderland, and going down the rabbit hole or whatever she did, and so there was sort of a connection there, and we ended up with Alice, and it kind of stuck really, didn't it?
Yeah.
Can we get on to the big trip then, and the planning phase? Who did the planning? How did you go about that? What was your timeline, and which way were you going to go around the world, and what support were you sort of banking on to keep you going back at home? How did that play out?
So firstly, it's a solo. So I mean, no support at all. So it's unsupported ride. So things, and I'll let Cat explain part of it, but our jobs kind of very naturally divided how we work things out. So Cat looked at the strategic, the planet, the route, and that kind of element and timing. And I was looking after the social media, kind of parts of social media, and Cat is also a very thrifty rabbit and will not pay full price for anything at all. So everything.
Yorkshire lass, I guess.
Completely.
I wasn't going to say anything, Richard.
So anything that we needed, I had to go into negotiations, from sleeping bags to kit to you name it, and get some, and people were very generous in there. We bought it, but they did give us little discounts, otherwise we couldn't have it. So we did kind of split the jobs a bit. And
you need to be careful sitting next to Raz, because you'll end up sort of giving away your firstborn to her, because she'll sort of persuade you to so she was great on getting people to a bit of, we got some kit sponsorship and those sort of things, which was good.
So without putting you on the spot, Raz, how much did it cost you personally, as opposed to just broadly? I mean, are we talking second mortgage here, or did you get a lot of sponsorship to cover costs?
We didn't get any money at all. The sponsorship, every penny went to the charities, so we funded the whole thing ourselves. I mean, JD Tandems gave us people gave us discounts on kit, but we bought it all. I didn't count all of that bit, but I think we kind of, but we probably spent together about £50 a day on, and I suppose without including the bike, I suppose it was about in the region of 15,000. But
Each, yeah, something like that.
Very reasonable, really.
Yeah, I mean, compared to some of the events that you can go for, like Ride Across America and things like that. I mean, that sounds, on the face of it, sounds very reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, we camped and we stayed in some pretty, not exactly the nicest hotel in town and things like that. So we did it on the cheap as well, because we were sort of conscious. I mean, the biggest expense was the flights, actually.
Yeah.
And
one company did buy us some flights, which was very lovely of them. I didn't think they bargained for spending as much as they did, but they did, and that was great. But other than that, we funded it all ourselves.
And Stolen Goat, who are a cycling sort of clothing manufacturers, they gave us all the kit. So they were fantastic, actually. So they shipped some kit out to us as well, which was actually quite difficult logistically to get through customs. It was obviously a sign of Brexit to come that we couldn't actually get this kit because it got stuck in customs everywhere we went. But we did. They were brilliant. And I guess I did the route. So the route, there's quite a lot of rules from Guinness about what the route is. So you've got to go in one direction. So we went east. That's because the prevailing winds come from the west. So in theory, the wind will be behind you more than it isn't, even though reality it never feels like that. And you've got to do 18,000 miles as a minimum, sort of in one direction. So you can't kind of backtrack or zigzag about. So you've got to come up with a route that enables you to do that. And obviously thinking about some of the countries that you can travel in, particularly as two women together, so you've got to kind of think that through. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk through the route in terms of where we went, if to give people an idea.
I think that would be great, and I suppose, and I've been on the website, so I've had a look at the general direction of the route, but it's also the day-to-day planning. I mean, when you get down to you're getting up in the morning, you kind of need to know mentally as much as anything else how far you're going to ride, roughly where you're going to stop, whether you're about to hit a desert or something particularly, I would imagine, in Australia and places like that. So just walk us through. Did you do it on the hoof, or are you literally, before you leave, where you're going day to day?
So we had the route. So you have to submit the route to Guinness, and you have to get that approved before you can go. So we knew broadly, where we were going to go. We made a couple of changes to that because there were some things that happened on the ground which meant that we had to, but we were pretty much following that route. But what we did every day was wherever we got to, we knew that we were riding between 80 and 100 miles a day, sometimes a bit more if we needed to, but generally that was the sort of range. So we would look, where's the next place where we're going to be able to eat and probably stay somewhere that is a minimum of 80 miles away on the route, and that's what we planned, and we would plan the route each night based on that, and that's how we did it.
And any horror stories in terms of arriving somewhere and thinking we didn't think this through, or?
No, not really.
Really?
I think we thought it. No, I mean, I suppose we'd stayed in some places which we thought, and actually, places where, when we opened the door, there were people sleeping on the floor in just outside our door, and we having to step over people and things. But I don't think we had any scary things like that on the whole. I think we were incredibly lucky, and people were so lovely, which was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we stayed in some really, I mean, she's sort of putting it politely, but honestly, we stayed in some absolutely filthy, hills, which you wouldn't really want to stay. But and occasionally we had to wild camp, and so we just camp, at the side of the road. We stayed. I mean, once we stayed in Turkey in it was a service station where we were on the dog run, so we absolutely reeked dog, you know, and
Know
we
that,
pitched the camp and we pitched the tent, and then we were under the, you know, we're under the sort of call to prayer tannoy that was sort of blasting out at 4:15 in the morning. So, you know, there's that sort of stuff. And but
actually one night we were in a caravan. We went into a caravan park, which was kind of dust cut, and then there was a lovely green strip. So we thought, well, we'll put the tent on there. Very wise, lovely, soft grass. And in about midnight, it absolutely poured. I mean, torrential rain. It was shaking the tent. And then, kind of past, stopped suddenly. And we realised we'd parked under the sprinkler system because it just kept turning on and turning on. That's why the grass was so green. But you know, some of those.
We may have some of our audience this evening who sort of thinking about doing something like this. Very quickly, Cat, I've got in my mind's eye, you've left England and you've got to Turkey. So and crossing the Middle East and sort of mid-Asia, how did that work out, given the sort of ongoing political strife that you have?
Yeah, well, what we did was we went, I mean, literally we went across France, through Italy, down the Croatian coast. So you go through, and then you go into Montenegro, Albania, Macedonia, through Greece, into Turkey, and then we went right across Turkey, so at the bottom of the Black Sea, and into Georgia, and then we got to Tbilisi, and then from there we took a flight. So, you know, we wouldn't have got into Iran. I mean, Brits can't get visas or anything like that at the moment. So we took a flight to India, and we were in Mumbai, and we went right around the coast of India to Calcutta, which India is a real experience to cycle in. And we were over the border into Myanmar, which obviously wouldn't be able to be there at the moment. Down through Myanmar, into Thailand, into Malaysia, to Singapore, and then we got a flight to Perth, and then we went right across Australia to Brisbane, and then we went to New Zealand, cross New Zealand, flight to the States, San Francisco to Miami, and then Morocco, Spain, France, and back. And that was the route. So, you know, some of the countries which, you know, would be really challenging for us to travel in, you know, just because, you know, you wouldn't be able to wear a pair of shorts and, you know, etc. We kind of avoided, and that was 18,263 miles we did. So we just went over the 18,000 to get back.
And you came up with that route, did you, or was that an off-the-shelf route, or had others?
No, I came up with that route. Yeah, I planned that, so I did the route.
The guys that did before went the other direction, the other way. They started in Australia, but went the other way and back again. So we did Cat kind of the route.
Yeah, I mean, the land route is, so, you know, if you look at what, say, Jenny Graham did, so Jenny Graham's the woman who has got the solo record, and she went, a lot of people take the land route sort of, so you go through, you're touching Russia and you go into China. And, you know, because you've got less flights, so in theory, you know, you can, but actually, you know, if you ever listen to her, you know, it was a bit of a nightmare. She had to cycle at night because it was so dangerous on the roads and various bits and pieces. So, you know, when we thought about the route, we thought, oh, it'd be lovely to go down the Croatian coast, and oh, wouldn't that be nice? So we actually tried to follow quite a lot of coastline and make it, you know, sort of as an enjoyable route, even though it was quite, you know, it was quite a tough route at times because, you know, there was mountains and various other bits and pieces that we needed to climb. So, but it was, you know, it was nice. It was a really nice route.
It was lovely.
You didn't set out for the record, by the sound of it. It sounded.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
You did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course we did.
You didn't. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, I'm getting a sense super competitive here. So we'll get in. Actually, let's go there now because
we set out to beat the men. So from the start, it was that's what we did.
So
so that was our schedule.
I'm sure you've thrown the gauntlet down to a few of the chaps like Mark Beaumont and others, you know, to get on a proper bike and do it in tandem.
Yeah.
But
clearly, I mean, we spoke to Mark before we went. I mean, he was, you know, he was great, and you know, we've done a couple of events sort of with him. He was doing one of the cycle things the other week, and we spoke at that and things. So Yeah, no, we set off to beat the men's record. I mean, originally we'd sort of planned that we were going to beat it just by, we thought, well, if we beat it by a day, that'll do. So we kind of scheduled the amount that we needed to ride in line with that. But we actually beat it by 17.5 days in the end. So, which was just as well, because if not, we'd have got locked down in Spain because of the pandemic, which is another story.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to put me off this because I want to explore this competitiveness here. So you're both on a bike. And there's got to be some tough times, right? Given some of the mountains that you were riding through. How often did you fall out? I'm not going to ask if you did fall out because I'm assuming you did. So what was it, 268 days or something? So you must have fallen out.
Not actually, this is the truth. This is absolute truth. Not with each other. We got very grumpy from time to time, but not at each other.
That's pretty impressive. We'll ask the audience whether they believe you, Raz. But
yeah.
I think.
I mean, the things that were hard, just in relation to being together, were things like when we got hungry and tired. So, but food was the biggest stressor actually. When you run out of food and you get a bit of hunger, and it'd normally be like, I thought we were going to stop there. Well, I didn't know you were going to stop there because I never go back. That's the other thing.
I spotted a Domino's pizza which we've not eaten. Oh, there's too late, gone. It's like, really.
I've ridden with people like that. There are probably some on the webinar actually.
Yeah. What we should say at this stage to our audience is, if you have got some questions, we've had one or two come in, do fire them in through the chat room if you've got anything specific. I've got a few quick fire ones for you now, starting with you, Raz. What was the best day on the whole ride?
Best day, I think, seeing Pisa. Pisa. Cycling, and that was lovely.
And the worst?
The worst. That was the worst when I had a bit of a contretemps with a campsite manager in Australia. On the
Longest day in miles, Cat?
I think it was 120 odd through the Nullarbor, which is the desert in Australia.
And highest altitude?
Into a headwind.
Into a headwind. Well, there's always wind.
Highest altitude. I'm not sure about altitude. I mean, I think the biggest climb day was over 7,000. It was about 7,000, 8,000 feet, I think.
Okay.
Did you? I mean, we'll come on to sort of mechanical parts, but how did you hold up physically? I mean, not just in terms of illness, because as you said, you've been going through India and various other countries where to get through scot-free, you'd be pretty good.
We were in India completely fine, but we were incredibly careful to the point where we would go somewhere. I mean, hand washing, sanitation, kind of avoiding ice cube, all the things we absolutely did. Complete vegetarian diet, nothing that wasn't in a kind of a shell or a peel or anything like that. We'd go in and we might at lunchtime one day we ordered food, which was normally curry, 3 times a day curry. And by the time it had arrived, we kind of realized that it was a really filthy place. It arrived on the table and we just paid and left because we couldn't kind of risk it. So we were incredibly careful and we were fine in India. And actually, I can say this now because we're back, but we really weren't ill throughout most of the trip.
What about Cat? What about sort of bits wearing out physically?
Yeah. So my bum, I think we both had pretty bad saddle sore, particularly in India, and it was partly because we tried to get some kit delivered to us, some shorts, in both Turkey and then in Georgia, and we couldn't get it out of customs. It was a story in itself actually, but anyway, so we ended up in India, and the shorts they'd just ridden bloody long way, and then of course what happened in India was that we were at the tail end of the monsoon, but the monsoon sort of extended that year, so it was a very long and very wet monsoon, and we were just getting wet every day, India and through Southeast Asia, and so you can just imagine it was pretty painful actually.
But
So yeah.
we have got the solution. We tried all sorts of stuff, but we actually have a solution now.
And are you going to share that?
Small fee, yeah. But you know the kinetic sports tape that you get for kind of sports injuries, that on your bottom in strategic places is perfect. It moves, it doesn't have, there's no friction, you know, stops the friction. Stays in for 3 days, really good.
You heard it here first. And I'm sure Raz, you're on commission.
And I'll put it on for you too for a bigger thing.
So it's just a whole way of doing your bikini line for sure. That's,
I am a nurse, but after, you know, by trade.
So let's move on quickly, Richard. Should we talk about? I mean, you talked about broken spokes on cheap bikes, but you were saying that you pretty much got away without too many mechanicals, but presumably you had bits wear out on the bike, didn't you?
We've had a question come in from Frank Thompson. Good evening, Frank. Gearing and bits on the bike, so clearly the gears would take a bit of a hammering. You know, did they? How did they get on?
Yeah, so we didn't have a roll off or roll off. I don't like them. It's purely me. So we did have to change the cassette quite a number of times. We broke, I think, 2 or 3 chains. So we went through quite a number of chains, and we did replace the gearing. So we just had Autogra gearing on a pretty big ratio, like a 42 cassette.
And did you have that? Did you have those spares with you, or did you find places en route to sort you out?
We shipped one derailleur out to one cassette out to Turkey with a chain. We were carrying obviously a spare chain and things and some quick links and all of that sort of stuff. So we had some spares with us, but and then we did stop. What you're allowed to do is obviously you can use bike shops. So we did get the bike, the very few days off that we had, because we generally didn't have days off, but the very few days off was generally so that we could get the bike sort of serviced. So we did stop to get the bike serviced.
And did you puncture much?
Yeah.
You did puncture.
The day. Yeah, not too bad. But we did have one day we had, our worst was five punctures. But I think it was basically the crap inner tubes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was partly the road coming out of Myanmar. Yeah. No, God, no, you wouldn't want to be tubeless. You honestly, you just wouldn't, because you are. Though we didn't, 5 was our record, but I mean we did have other days where there'd be 3 or 2, or it's a heavy bike, and you wouldn't want tubs. I mean the other thing is that you can't get replacements. I mean it's difficult enough in India and Southeast Asia to actually get, because they have 28-inch wheels, so they don't have 700C. So it's actually quite difficult to get spare inner tubes and things like that. So you certainly wouldn't be able to get tubs out there.
Yeah.
Actually, Schwab gave us as many tires as well as we wanted. We couldn't carry them all, but we had quite a few foldable tires that we kept. So we had quite a lot of spares that we used. Yeah.
So you mentioned rest days. So how many rest days did you have, and what constituted a rest day?
The bike getting serviced. I think when we set off, we had thought we might have a rest day a week, but that soon disappeared, and we just didn't. We had a rest day. Well, we had one in each continent, possibly, when we got the bike serviced.
So we rode across America with one. We rode across Australia with one rest day. And it was to get to the bike fixed. We rode around India with 1 day off.
Thought we were going to have Christmas off, but we actually didn't. We
did actually. To be fair, we did take Boxing Day off, but we've ridden we'd ridden really hard when to get to, because we knew some people in New Zealand, didn't we? And we ended up getting the ferry and getting in at 2 a.m. On what was effectively Christmas Day morning, and then we rode the next day.
Yeah.
Which and it was actually over quite a mountain range, and
Yeah.
and so we did have a day off for Christmas.
That Christmas Eve, when we arrived, we put the address of the people we were staying at into Komoot, and they gave us a very lovely, literally up, down, so 2 o'clock in the morning, and the hills that we were going on were unbelievable, so incredibly steep. When we arrived, we said, my goodness. They said, well, why didn't you come around the road at the bottom? There's not a single hill. And of course, Komoot, whenever you're in a town, they want to give you the hilly route. So don't do that.
Yeah, well, there's actually a question on that, Raz. Somebody's asked, how did you navigate? Were you literally using sat navs and phones? And
so I was the navigator.
well, you've got nothing else to look at, have you, really?
Cat's bottom, back, head. No, I've got lots of but we set the route on Komoot and uploaded it to Wahoo's. But that was again for Guinness, we have to have, that's the other thing for Guinness, we had to have a lot of different kind of evidence.
Yeah.
So all of those routes were evidence that we used.
We'll just pick that one up, Raz, actually, because one of the questions coming in was around that, in terms of the submission that you have to put to Guinness to ratify the record.
Yeah, well, I think most records that Guinness do are like how many boiled eggs you can eat in a minute. So the evidence you need for that is a minute video. They're not very many, are 263 days. So they had asked for daily videos, daily photographs, every receipt that we had. We had a spot to follow, so they had that. They had the Komoot. They had 2 Stravas. We had Cat wrote a blog every day, had the website. So all of those things every single day we had to put in, and we realized pretty quickly that we couldn't keep up. I mean, just keeping the receipts for the food and things and scanning those and uploading them was, without Wi-Fi, was pretty hard. So we had a backroom boy, my brother. We sent everything, and he amazingly made little files every day and uploaded. So when we got back, Guinness actually said, having not communicated hugely with us, said, do you know what, you have such good evidence. We just had to upload kind of the last videos, and they told us almost straight.
And the route. Yeah.
Oh, and the route. Somebody helped with the route, because that was really, really complicated. And they told us within a few weeks of being back, because they'd seen the evidence throughout the whole journey, because that was being uploaded, that they told us that we got the record. But we then had to wait. It was under embargo till July, when they were launching their book, because they used us to launch their book.
Yeah, so which was really nice, because we were the lead story for them on their book launch.
Brilliant.
This year.
Let's have a couple of quick fire, Richard. Couple of quick fires. Yeah,
what was the biggest surprise on the route?
We could do it. I was surprised we could do it every day. What surprised you, Kat?
I don't know. I mean, I think some of the thing, I suppose I was surprised that, we got followed by a pandemic. That wasn't something I anticipated when we set off. I mean, I think maybe the surprise was, this quick fire, was actually the things that we thought would go wrong would be us falling off or getting sick. And actually the things that nearly stopped us were all the external things, like fire, Australia being on fire, pandemics following us, monsoon rains, that sort of stuff. I think that was a surprise.
Failed drought.
Favorite country to cycle in?
Myanmar.
No.
Really? Interesting.
Beautiful.
Scariest moment?
Being chased by a naked man.
I thought you enjoyed that. I think drivers in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did you cycle much at night?
No. When it was dark, yes, but not.
Not through the night, but we cycled in the dark. Yeah. We had to. Yeah.
A couple of questions. There's a couple of questions that have come in, and anybody else wants to fire questions. We'll bounce around a little bit, but Frank wanted to finish off his question. It's clearly very technical. Which
Marathon.
Which Schwalbs?
Marathon.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, Charles Maunder, who comes riding out with us quite a lot, has got an ambition to do this event with his wife, and he's negotiating. And as a professional negotiator, Cat,
He's a lawyer, Cat. He's a lawyer.
you may be able to help him with some persuasive techniques. Any advice for somebody trying to persuade or encourage somebody to partner with them?
I think you both have to be committed to do it. To you know, if you, I mean, I think there's different ways of doing it. I mean, obviously, if you're going to break the world record, then it is a completely different experience to if you were, you know, riding and then stopping and enjoying, you know, what was there and going to the next place. I'd recommend that for anybody. I think it's very different when you're on a regime like us, where, you know, you literally are on the bike every day, you know, minimum of 80 miles, irrespective of the weather, conditions, hills, you know, it's a different experience for sure.
There were definitely places where it'd be lovely to have stopped a week and just had a wander around or a few days off, or, you know, New Orleans, I could have stayed there forever. You know, there were lots of places that were just lovely, and we could have stayed there longer, but we just kind of zoomed past them all.
I mean, it sounds a bit of a regret, and I can sort of empathise with that, because I did something similar when we did John O'Groats to Land's End, but we maybe explore that a little bit later if we've got time. But anything that you would do differently? So if you were talking to yourselves about doing a similar trip, what would you change? What would you do differently?
Nothing.
I was going to say nothing.
Get a different partner. No.
I nearly said that. I nearly thought Kat would say that, actually, but no, she didn't. Yeah, no, nothing different.
Fantastic.
Yeah, nothing.
So how did you feel rolling into, well, you started in Oxford, didn't you?
Yeah.
So how did you feel rolling back into Oxford?
Do you know what? Coming up through Spain, I just didn't want to finish. I mean, I know it was lovely, and I know we were going to finish, but I wasn't ready. I would have gone round again.
I think what was hard was that we'd planned to get back and have there was a lot of people going to come and see us get back, and then we were just because people might not know, but we got back on March the 18th, and the UK went into lockdown. So that was the Wednesday, and the UK went into lockdown on the Monday, and we got out of France the day that France went into lockdown, and the travel ban, which would have stopped us riding, effectively came in. And so we were rather than having a sort of a celebration, there was all a party and everything, we were just sort of really riding. And it was quite stressful, actually, you know, because we knew that everything was closing down around us. We couldn't get any food during the day, and you know, nowhere to stop, and we just had to sort of get back. So it was kind of weird getting back. And then, of course, we were straight into lockdown. So where we would have been sort of celebrating, and, you know, we were due on breakfast TV and all of those sort of things. And all of that just got, you know, totally taken over by the pandemic. And, you know, on the Monday, we were locked down after being, you know, riding every day for 263 days. So it was kind of odd coming back.
Some would say that was good timing.
Well, it was certainly good timing for the record, but it was kind of weird, you know, weird from going from one, you know, extreme top to the other, I suppose.
And I think getting back for me, I was going to take a month off and chill, and I was back at work less than a week before we got back.
So actually, just picking up that work point, Raz, one of the questions is, you know, how did you get the time off? Did you leave work, or were you given extended leave, or what was the story there?
Well, both of us had to do different things. Kat had to hand her notice in and from her job and got a job on the way around, which was quite clever. And I work for the NHS, and I'm old, so I got a career break. So you can have a career break in the NHS. If you're back before a year, you keep your job. After a year, they can't guarantee the same job, but you can have career breaks.
So Kat, you actually got a new job on the way around, is that right?
Yeah, so I got interviewed. So as I say, I run the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. So it's it's basically we resolve disputes and conflicts. And I got interviewed in Tombstone, Arizona, and in the background was the reenactment of the gunfight from the OK Corral. So this was going on during the interview, so it was quite surreal actually. But fortunately, they offered me
You're
the job.
sitting there in your lycra, presumably.
I was sitting there in my lycra because I mean there wasn't anything else really to wear.
We couldn't make anything else.
Yeah, brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. So, quick one. I think I know the answer to this, but somebody's asked the question: what do you prefer, tandem or single? Cat.
We like both. I mean, they're different. You know, it's a very different rhythm of riding. I mean, most of the riding we do actually is on solos. To be fair, we train on solos, and then we come. You know, we do obviously train on the tandem as well. But it's it's a very so I think both are great. I mean, if you're doing if you're doing something like the tap, you're not probably going to do it on a tandem. I mean, you could do, but it's it's pretty hard work. Tandems are really hard work on the hills, much harder than solos. So, but I mean, obviously, cycling is the thing that we really love.
On our Wahoo, you could see coming downhill, we were going up to 48, 50 miles an hour, and then you go up a hill and it goes 48, 47, all the way down to 3 miles an hour. It just goes blah 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 blah, and then you kind of slog up again, and then you zoom down. So it's it's hard to keep track of it really.
We've got one question, man after my own heart. Did you do much drinking on the way around? Any beers? Any parties? Any letting your hair down, or were you too serious, too professional?
I think that was that naked Australian man, Richard.
Well, I should tell one story actually. You know the story I'm going to tell. So I don't drink, so that's one thing. But Raz does, and she spent our last money one evening in India on a beer. So which meant that we didn't have any money at all for breakfast, and we had to go in search of a cash machine, which are actually really difficult to find in India before we could actually have anything to eat. So what could I say? Priorities.
At the time, I just had I thought that was absolutely fine, reasonable.
That sounds reasonable to me. I'm with you, Raz. I think
there's plenty of places to go to read a little bit more about the adventure. Can you just mention some of them, because you haven't produced the book or the film yet, but where would you point any of our audience to just reading a little bit more about your epic journey?
Just very briefly about that, because I have to kind of say Cat was amazing, and I think you probably, not knowing Cat, she was a rebel at school and didn't necessarily do the English literature and creative writing element of work. So
I am a lawyer. So I can't, so just to be clear, I can actually string a sentence together.
Yeah, no, you can. But clearly, just writing for pleasure is what I was trying to say. But very quickly you discovered a fantastic skill of writing very quickly the blog. So Cat wrote a blog, a daily blog. I did the photographs and sometimes videos, and we put them together on our Facebook, which is TandemWOW. And actually, when we read them, they made me laugh every day because Cat was very rude, mostly about me, but it was quite funny. So there's a daily blog on Facebook. All the photographs are on Instagram, TandemWOW. Cat also put things on Twitter at TandemWOW, and we have a website with extended versions and the
so there's kind of a slightly longer blog which isn't, it's sort of the stages, so it'd be like India, whatever stage it was.
And I should say to our audience that George is recording this webinar, so anybody who has missed it and would like to hear this sort of anecdotal, slightly humorous and fun evening, they can watch it via the BDOVELO website. What next springs to mind, because you can't just do that and say that's it. So what plans have you got afoot?
Well, we are training to our best ability at the moment, and we do have a plan. It's not set in stone, but we are hoping to beat the women's record for non-stop from Land's End to John O'Groats on a tandem.
And you better share with us what the current record is that you plan to beat.
Yeah, there isn't one.
Yeah, you've got to do it in. You've got to do it really in sort of 60 hours.
So
Which
Guinness have set, accepted our thing, Guinness, and said 60 hours, but the road record say within 85. So
yeah.
Okay.
So it's a very different sort of a ride though, because it's supported. So we wouldn't be, it's just a ride, 850 miles, and sort of don't really stop.
So he's building the bike, Cat.
So JD Tandems are going to build as a racing tandem. So they're doing that for us. So yeah, I mean the difficulty is going to has been the timing, because I mean originally we were thinking of doing it when we got back, but obviously we wouldn't have been able to do that. But actually, I think the truth was that I was pretty knackered when we got back as well. I had something called overtraining syndrome, which probably because I've been overtraining.
Yeah, I think Richard knows a bit about that.
Yeah, it's taken a bit of time to recover, and I think the other thing that we were riding, you were riding. I mean, if we were getting into sort of technical, but kind of zone 1, zone 2. So so you weren't doing any sort of threshold or any of the sort of really fast stuff, because obviously you had to sustain every day. Though obviously you do go into the red a bit when you're on the hills. So we've been, we've had to sort of shift the training around a little bit. So we're doing much more, kind of, really sort of pushing the wattage a bit more than we would have done if we'd been on the bike, on the tandem.
So you were talking earlier before we kicked off that you've got a coach you're working with at the moment. So talk us through the beasting that you're getting from the coach.
Well, she's harsh actually. I don't get back from work on a Monday till about 8:30, so that's my day off, she thinks. And but other than that, we train on turbos Tuesday, possibly Wednesday or Thursday, and maybe do yoga on Friday, then road ride 3 or 4 hours on Saturday. Then she sets something. She allows us to have a ride so we can chat on a Saturday or Sunday. We're allowed one chatting ride, which is and then it starts all over again.
Yeah, she's so she's great actually. She's a woman called Yaz Muller. She's world record holder. She's also attempted the Land's End John O'Groats solo quite a few times, but she's quite a well known. She's she won the round the Netherlands round the race I think last year now, and also the Oman. She's an endurance cyclist basically. She's but she's quite well known with certainly the women's cycling scene.
So are you fundraising again for this? Assuming it goes ahead later this year, obviously vaccines and pandemic.
Yeah, I think on twofold. I think if we did, it's hard when you've done so much and got money for the charities. We don't want to ask the same people to kind of crop up again for that. So that's tricky. But I think what would be fantastic is just to be able to fund this, because we're going to have support people that we have to look after, and being able to support them with kind of.
Yeah, so what Raz is trying to say is everybody would like to sponsor us. Please.
I heard it. Yeah. I heard it.
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it.
We've got the Bob Geldof. The Bob Geldof is out there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think that we're just drawing to a close on time. What is the lasting memory of? It's quite an inspiring story of meeting, not being professional cyclists and doing it and coming home and then not being able to celebrate it in quite the way you perhaps hoped. What's the lasting memory of TandemWOW?
I think it's, I don't know if Kat will agree, but for me, it's our friendship and how well we got on and just the fun we had and the really laughing and just having great, even in adversity, we just had to laugh. But it's that friendship and teamwork, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think for me, every day on the bike was a different adventure. We did laugh a lot, but it was hard. But I think that humour and that teamwork, but something also about following your dreams and just going for it. And what's the worst that can happen? So and that's kind of what we did. And it was just a brilliant experience. And so that's the kind of that feeling is the overriding memory. But every day getting onto the bike was, there wasn't one day when we said, actually we don't want to ride today.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
fantastic. And I think hugely inspirational. I mean, that comment you just made there, Kat, in terms of following your dreams, and how particularly Raz went from riding around Richmond Park to riding around the world. I mean, there's hope for us all, Richard.
Touche.
Look, while we sort of wrap things up, I don't know if George has managed to do the draw.
He has. No, he has.
Do we have some winners?
We do. So congratulations, Deborah Wilder or Wilder. Apologies if I've pronounced that incorrectly. And Julian Duxfield. We'll be mailing a bottle of finest Market Row rum to you after this. Probably worth plugging our next webinar, which is Pure Electric. Tom McPhail, who's the Director for Public Affairs for Pure Electric, is going to share his story in a fortnight's time. And, a lot happening in electric bikes and electric scooters. So that will be a slightly different angle. And then a fortnight after that, Dan Bigham is going to join us. And we're going to announce some further webinars in March very shortly.
Indeed. So, Raz, if you're thinking about going round again, perhaps at a more leisurely pace, perhaps you should tune in next time and see if you can bag yourself an electric bike.
That would be a plan.
And I'm sure Mr. Bingham's probably got some hints and tips on the Land's End John O'Groats if you want some hints from Mr. Aerodynamics. So you're very welcome to join us that evening. But as for this evening, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic to have a couple of world record holders on the BDOVELO webinar. Brilliant. I think this is a first off. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I'm sure Richard and I did this evening.
No, it's great. I really enjoyed it.
Asking us, yeah.
Super. And you never know, we might drag you around Richmond Park again at some point in the future.
Anytime, we'd love to.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. And keep well, stay warm, and see you next time. Cheerio.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Cheers now.